Namaste and welcome. Let us learn discharge of a contract. Let's look into discharge of a contract. Under discharge, we are talking of delivery in terms of performance or default. Either you perform or you fail to perform. Under perform, we have three heads. Performance, which has got certain rules. Applying to perform is the second set of performance parameter, and there are reciprocal promises. These three talk of delivery, whereas we have situations where we fail to deliver, or we do not deliver, or we are not expected to deliver. In case of impossibility, we are exempted from delivering. And if there is an agreement to discharge, there is no need to discharge, no need to deliver. And in case of default, we fail to deliver. There is a breach. These are the situations where discharge come into picture. Discharge effectively completes all the deliverables by way of performance or by way of default. Let us just see the components. Under the first component, we are looking into the features of what a performance should look like. What is the obligation of parties? What is to be offered? What if the promiser refuses to perform? Who has to perform? And what happens when there are joint performance? This talks of different features of situations involved in performance. Then we have got another set of things. Applying for performance. There are two parties, promiser and promisee. One of them have to take the first move. The person who asks for delivery is applying for delivery. Therefore, there should be performance with application, without application, and if there is already a prescription by the promisee, what should be the way performance has to go forward. And we have one set of promises known as reciprocal promises, which are cause and result or concurrent or close to each other promises. We will be also looking into reciprocal promises and their performance under 5 sections from 51 to 55. These three are talking of delivery under discharge. Then comes no delivery under discharge. If there is impossibility creeping in, you need not have to perform the contract, you are discharged automatically. And there are situations starting from destruction of subject matter, change of circumstances, contemplated event, death, incapacity, government intervention, intervention of war. This is talking of impossibility of performance. Then we might have an agreement between promiser and promisee. By virtue of that agreement, there will be a novation, an alteration of the contract, or a rescission of the contract, or a waiver, or a remission. When these type of new agreements are signed in place of old agreements, you are exempt from delivery. And the last one is where you breach. There is a default. You fail to deliver or refuse to deliver even till the last day. They wait and there is no delivery. And there is no delivery and there is a breach because of certain other reasons also. This is the scope of the discharge of a contract. Now let's get into the first part of performance, which is covered by sections 37 to 43 as listed here, and understand each one of them in their detailed components. Now we will get into the provisions of section 37 to 43, which indicates various steps. First step is obligation of the parties under section 37. What does it say? It says parties to a contract have an option either to perform or offer to perform. If you have to deliver 100 bags of rice, either you deliver 100 bags of rice or you tell the promisee that I am ready to deliver it to you, I am offering to perform. It is a difference of actually doing it or about to do it. Offering to do perform means almost there to do it, and a promiser can do either of these as a part of his job as a promiser. It is his duty to do one of these two. But there are situations where he may be excused either by the Contract Act or by any other law. But normally either perform or offer to perform. Now in respect of perform, we are very clear. Let us understand what is there in offer to perform. What does it imply? When you are offering to do something, you are making an offer stating I am going to do this. But when you say I am going to deliver you 100 bags of sugar, there should be no condition, provided you pay me, provided you give that, provided you give this to me, provided you get people to do it. No, it should be unconditional offer. I am going to deliver it to you. And it should be done at the proper time and place. If you are delivering rice, maybe it is the go down which is the proper place. And what is the right time to offer? The right time to offer will be when the warehouse is working during its business hours. And when you offer to deliver, the promisee will say, you are going to deliver? Are you able and are you willing to deliver the whole quantity? If you are supposed to deliver 100 bags, and if you are able to deliver 100 bags, and if you are willing to deliver 100 bags, the offeree wants to be sure that you have got the capacity to do it. Therefore, when you offer to perform, you should give an opportunity to the promisee that he forms an opinion that you are able and willing to deliver the whole quantity or perform the whole promise. And along with the person, he also needs to see what is that you are offering. You are delivering rice. If you are delivering 100 bags of rice, he would like to see what is that rice you are delivering. The thing that is offered by the promiser is bound to deliver. The promisee or one who takes delivery should have the opportunity to check both the person and its capability and the product. Are you delivering the same thing which you agreed with us? Now, if both are okay, it is unconditional, it is at the right time, right place, and the promiser has seen that the person who has come to deliver is able, willing, the whole quantity, and the thing offered is also what he was supposed to deliver. Now the promiser has made the offer. The promisee, in the normal circumstance, he has got to accept it. And that completes the discharge, performance. But there may be cases where a promisee, for his own reasons, may not accept. What happens now? Everything is ready to deliver. He doesn't accept. In that case, the person who is delivering has to non-perform. He cannot deliver because the other person is not taking it. In that case, promisor is not responsible for non-performance. Everything was ready, but the promisee or the person who was supposed to receive the goods, he refused to accept. When promisee refuses to accept, promisor is not responsible for non-performance. These are the rules in respect of offer to perform. And we saw here the promisee refuses to accept. Sometimes what happens, the person who comes to offer, promisor, he refuses to perform in its entirety. See, when he comes to offer, he has to offer the full promised goods. He can't give piecemeal. If he is not doing it fully, whole, in that case, the promisee is the person who was supposed to receive the goods. He can say, I don't want to accept. He can put an end to the contract. I don't want to receive piecemeal. Therefore, the contract is just put an end to. We are treating it as non-performance. We are treating it as a default. Means, if promisor's refusal to perform fully, promisee can put an end to it. What happens as a result of it? It will lead to claims. Now, this is 37, 38 and 39. Let us go to 40 and 41. What does it say? See, in a contract, there is a promisor and there is a promisee. Promisor is supposed to give and promisee is supposed to take. If it was the intention of the parties that promise must be performed by the promisor, for example, you hire a musician to sing, you expect the musician to perform. It has to be performed by the musician, the promisor. But there are cases we allow the musician to bring his team member, his assistant or his chela, and he is a competent person, he can also perform. Means what? If you do not insist on the promisor to perform, if you are not strict about that, then promisor can bring another competent person and put him on the job to perform. It gives an option to him. And if the subordinate or the competent person or the assistant comes and starts singing, and if you accept his performance, you cannot later complain that no, only you have to perform, your assistant cannot perform. That doesn't work. You take a decision once. You say, we want only the promisor to come and deliver. If we keep quiet and the promisor sends his team member or assistant, we have an option either to accept it or not to accept it. Once you accept delivery by the assistant or a third person, you will not have any more right to complain that no, we want the promisor himself to do it directly. This is what section 40 and 41 says. Simply put, promisor has to perform and promisee has an option to say, no, I want only promisor to perform and no one else, then promisor will perform himself. If the promisee doesn't object, promisor can bring another competent person, and if the promisee accepts the services or accepts the goods, later he doesn't have the right to have a claim against the promisor stating, no, I want you to deliver. This is regarding 40 and 41. Then there are joint promisors. If, for example, there is a contract between 5 promisors and 1 promisee, These 5 promisers, see, they have got 5 taxis, let us suppose. We have hired one of the taxis, and any one of them can bring the taxi and serve us. We have an option to take from any one of them, but so far as they are concerned, it is their joint responsibility. If one of them comes and delivers, they may have to have internally an arrangement to share the proceeds. The promisee may compel any one or more of such joint promisers to perform the whole promise. For example, let us take, we have to receive 100 bags of rice from these people. There are 5 partners. We can say each one of you give 20. Or the 5 partners themselves can decide, no, let one of us deliver him all 100 and let us share between ourselves what we are supposed to do. This is what section 43 says. In case of joint promisers, the promisee is one who receives, may compel any one of or more of such joint promisers to perform the whole of the promise. We can ask any 1 or 2 or 3 of them to deliver all the 100 bags of rice. Each promiser, each of these 5 people, may compel every other joint promiser to contribute equally. It is their part of sharing their internal thing. This is regarding discharge of a contract covered from 37 to 43. Section 46 to 50 talk of applying to perform and prescription by the promisee, and we are going to look into that. Under section 46 to 50, we have to understand situations from the point of view of the promisee and the promiser. Promiser is one who delivers. This promisee, he may be having one set of advice. He may say to the promiser that, okay, you can deliver the goods in our warehouse on a particular day. Means he prescribes what the promiser has to do when he has to do. This is situation number 1. Second, he may say to promiser, please don't deliver unless I tell you. Before you deliver in my warehouse, I have to apply to you stating, please deliver to my warehouse. There is a third situation where the promiser who has got the order, he says, I have got the order and I don't need any advice or telling from the promisee. I will directly deliver without application. To put it the other way, 3 situations where the promiser receives an advice from the promisee on the prescribed ways of delivery. That is one situation. Second situation where the promisee tells him, that process of telling is called applies. He informs promiser, please deliver it in our warehouse on this day. He applies. Third situation where the promiser doesn't wait for the application. He directly goes ahead. These are the 3 situations. If we come here now, this situation of promiser directly going ahead is promiser to perform promise without application from the promisee, without any instruction from the promisee, because as per the order he is supposed to deliver, he goes and delivers direct, without waiting. In the second situation, he can deliver, but he has to get application from the promisee, because promiser has not agreed to deliver without his advice. Therefore, he will wait for the application by the PE. The promisee has to tell him. Third situation is when promiser has got a standard instruction where the promisee prescribes then promisor has to simply follow what he has prescribed as a standard procedure. We will see these three situations. It will be quite interesting. First, when the promisor directly delivers based on the order without waiting for any application from the promisee, because his promise or order says a particular day. If it says deliver it on 10th of June, on 10th of June he can deliver. But what time? Time is not mentioned there in the promise order or the purchase order. He can deliver it any time. But it should be business hours when the place is working. For example, if a person brings deliverable goods to the warehouse after the warehouse is closed, he has not performed his promise because he has done a certain day, but his time is wrong. He has not come during usual business hours. Therefore, promisor, when he does it on his own without application, he has to follow this principle. If day is mentioned, on that day, any time during business hours. And promisor has got an order which says deliver within a week. When it says within a week, no specific day is mentioned there. No time or no specific day is mentioned. What he should do? If it says within a week, he should deliver it on third day or fourth day within a reasonable time. When time and duration is not specified, but overall time is understood, he has to do it within a reasonable time. Third case, he has got the order, he has got the promise, but where to deliver he doesn't know. But he can't deliver it somewhere. When the place is not mentioned in the order or promise, it becomes his responsibility to ask the promisee, I am ready, where shall I deliver? Means when the promisor asks him, where shall I deliver? It is called promisor to apply. Promisor applies to promisee, or promisor requests the promisee to appoint a place. Where shall I deliver is what he asks, which is known as promisor to apply to promisee. To appoint a place means to ask him for directions, where shall I deliver? Once he asks the promisee and promisee tells him, then he will perform at that place. These are the three situations where a promisor, without waiting for the promisee's instructions, goes ahead. In the first two situations, he is through. Third situation, when the place is not known, he has got to apply to the promisee and understand where the place for delivery and perform accordingly. Second stage, where he will not be doing on his own, but he will wait for instructions from the promisee. Where is it? Promisee to apply for performance means the promisee will approach promisor, say, please deliver in our warehouse. He will indicate the place and the usual hours. Once he gives him advice, the promisor will deliver accordingly. Here he doesn't do on his own, he gets advice and then does it. There is a third situation. This promisee is very strict in his procedures. He says all my delivery should be in the prescribed manner at the prescribed time. If he says so, you have to follow it 100%. No question of asking or waiting. He has a procedure, follow it. The performance may be made in the prescribed manner and the prescribed time. For example, A owes 2000 rupees. B says, give me goods in reduction of the debt. That is his procedure. Perform your promise of 2000 rupees by delivering me goods. Simply deliver the goods to him, because that is the prescribed manner and the prescribed time as a part of payment. This is just implementing what he says. This is the summary of 46 to 50 of performance and application to perform. Now we shall be going to the topic of reciprocal promises, which are mentioned in section 51 to 55. Reciprocal promises are like an assembly line. The promises there are sequential. You perform one promise, then it is ready for the other promise to take on. Therefore, they are interdependent. How a reciprocal promise works and what are the rights and liabilities of promiser and promisee are listed in 51 to 55. Let us take one by one. Section 51 says a promiser is not bound to perform unless the reciprocal promisee is ready and willing. For example, you go to a restaurant wherein you have to pay cash, take the receipt, go to the counter and take the eatable. You will not get the receipt at the counter unless you are ready and willing to pay. He need not have to issue you the receipt unless you pay him the cash. The promiser means the person sitting at the counter to issue the receipt need not have to perform unless you are ready and willing to pay him cash. This is section 51. Promiser not bound to perform unless reciprocal promisee ready and willing to perform reciprocal promise. It all depends on who makes the first move. The person will make the first move if the other person is ready and willing to do his promise. Let's go to section 52. 52 says, where the order in which reciprocal promises are to be performed is expressly fixed by contract, they are performed in that order. To take the restaurant example, the strict order is you go to the counter, you pay cash, you collect the receipt, you go to the food counter, give the receipt, and you collect your eatable. This is the sequence: cash into receipt, receipt delivered at the counter, then you collect your eatable. Each step is following as an assembly line, one after the other. This is what the section says, where the order in which reciprocal promises are to be performed is expressly fixed by the contract, performed in that order. If it is not performed in that order, it will be performed in the order in which nature of transaction requires. Now the transaction where we are talking is counter, receipt, receipt handover and collection of eatables. This is the sequence the nature of transaction requires. But there is one more possibility also. If 10 people go together into a restaurant, they can have a contract with the restaurant saying, we will first collect the food, then make the valuation, come to the cash counter and pay the cash. It is also reciprocal. That can be based on an understanding where this routine is changed under a contract. Under your fresh contract, you are not paying cash first. You are first collecting the eatables, making a summary of your requirement, coming to the cash counter and then paying the cash. Where the order in which reciprocal promises are to be performed is expressly fixed by the contract. I collect the eatable, collect the bill, go to the cash counter and make the payment, performed in that order as per my contract. If I don't do it, I have to follow the regular procedure. What is the regular procedure? Pay cash, collect receipt, deliver receipt at the eatable counter, collect the eatables, else in the order in which the nature of transaction requires. This is how we have to understand 52. Then comes 53. When one party to the contract prevents the other from performing his promise, the contract is voidable at the option of the party so prevented. Let us take, there is a bus company. A bus company has got 10 buses. These 10 buses go to a petrol pump. They collect all their petrol, sign a register, and that register is given to the company to collect money. This is how the procedure works. Vehicles come to petrol pump, they line up, they sign a register, and they open the tank, collect the petrol, and they go. Whatever receipt they give, it is submitted to the company to collect the cash. It is a reciprocal arrangement. When one party to the contract prevents the other, for example, the petrol pump is ready to give the petrol. They are waiting for the buses, but the buses never turn up. 1 out of 100 buses comes. In that case, what is happening? The bus company, one party, is preventing the petrol pump, the other party, from performing his promise. His promise is to give petrol. The contract is voidable at the option of the party prevented. The petrol company, petrol pump, can treat the contract of supply as voidable. They can stop supplying petrol and they can claim compensation for the loss caused by the non-performance, because the bus company did not do their part of reciprocal promise of bringing all buses in sequence to collect the petrol. And since they prevented petrol company from filling the petrol as per plan, the petrol company could treat the contract as voidable and they can claim compensation for the inconvenience caused by the bus company in not fulfilling their promise. He is entitled to compensation for any loss in consequence of non-performance. Let's go to 54. When one of them cannot be performed till the other has been performed, the promiser of the promise last mentioned fails to perform it. Here, unless the buses come and park at the petrol pump cannot perform its function. When one of them cannot be performed till the other has performed, here the other is the bus company. If the bus has not performed and the promiser of the promise last mentioned is the bus is supposed to perform. If they fail to turn up, they cannot claim performance of the reciprocal promise. They cannot say, now we are ready, give us petrol. No, because you were the party who failed to perform your job. Therefore, you can't ask the petrol company to supply petrol to you as a part of reciprocal promise. Instead, the petrol company can claim compensation. Bus company cannot claim compensation. If you take 53 and 54, in both cases, one party prevents the other from performing its promise. The party in default has to pay compensation and the party prevented has to claim compensation. 53 says, party prevented is petrol pump, they can claim compensation. Party failing is the bus company, they cannot claim compensation, nor can they claim fulfillment of the promise of performance. Come to 55. When a party to a contract promises but fails to do a thing before the specified time, the contract has not been performed, becomes voidable at the option of the promisee. Here the bus is the promisor. They are supposed to park the buses. They have failed to do so. Therefore, the contract becomes voidable at the option of the petrol pump, the promisee. If the intention of the parties, time should be the essence. For example, petrol pump has given a timing of by 5 p.m. all your buses should be there. If the buses are not there by 5 p.m., time is important, and it is agreed that time is essence of the contract. Petrol pump can consider the contract of petrol supply as voidable, and he need not have to perform his part, and he is entitled to compensation. Now, how 55 is different from 53 and 54? 55 talks of one more element. When you have said by 5 p.m. all your buses should be there in the petrol pump, time was the essence of the contract. If the buses didn't turn up by 5 p.m., they have not fulfilled the contract of being there in time. Therefore, petrol company can treat the contract as voidable, and they are the promisee. They are entitled to compensation for loss. Now the question comes, petrol company serves petrol when the buses come at 6 p.m. Then what happens? Where voidable, if it comes after 5, they need not have to supply. But here what happens? Where voidable, if the company accepts performance at any time other than that agreed, it comes after 5 p.m., they accept. The promisee cannot claim compensation. Here we said it is voidable, they can claim compensation. But once they allow them to get petrol after 5 p.m., their right to compensation is gone. Unless he says, you have come at 6 p.m., I can supply you petrol, but as per my contract, time is the essence, I am eligible for compensation. If you have no problem with paying compensation, I will give you petrol, and therefore I am giving petrol. Means he has to give notice to the promisor of his intention to claim compensation. He has to remind while accepting client after 5 p.m. that subject to my right to receive compensation, I can accept your performance of coming after 5 p.m. 55 says voidable contract when time is the essence, compensation is due to the promisee. If promisee relaxes and accepts even after the time, he will forgo the compensation, but he can claim the compensation if he gives notice while accepting performance by the promisor. And section 57 talks of a hybrid transaction where persons reciprocally promise firstly to do certain things which are legal, secondly certain other things which are illegal. First set is a contract, second set is a void agreement. The oft repeated example of A sells house to B for 10,000 rupees and says, if you are using for residential purpose, it is 10,000 rupees. If you use it for gambling, you should pay me 50,000. There are two contracts here now. First contract is selling of a house for residential purpose. It is perfectly legal. First set is a contract. But second set, which talks of using it as a gambling house, which is not permitted legally, it is a void agreement. Here we have seen 51, promiser, reciprocal promises, ready and willing. 52, we talked of the order in which it has to be performed, and it can be changed if we have got the contract with them as per the promise. Third, if one party is prevented, they get the right to avoid the contract, and the party so prevented can claim compensation. And the party who is in default cannot claim compensation, what 54 says. When time is the essence, the promisee who has not been allowed to perform can treat the agreement as voidable and he can claim compensation. But if he relaxes the rule and accepts deviation, ignoring the time, he loses compensation, but he can claim it provided he gives notice. And whenever in a contract there are two components, first part legal, second part illegal, first results in contract, second part is a void agreement. Having seen the performance part of it, now we are coming to the second part, wherein there is an impossibility, there is an agreement, and there is a breach. We will take up immediately impossibility under section 56. Discharge by impossibility is also known as frustration, which operates automatically independent of commercial hardships. There are 6 situations where the impossibility results in frustration. We will have a look at it. First one is destruction of subject matter. For example, there is a contract to buy an island, and the island is suffering an attack of tsunami and it vanishes. There is destruction of subject matter. The contract is discharged due to impossibility. Or there is a music hall which you have rented for performance. On the day of the concert, it is on fire and the music hall is lost. The music hall is not available for your concert. Impossibility. There are change of circumstances. You have taken a studio for film shooting. On that day there is an earthquake. Film shooting cannot be continued because there is change of circumstances. Now, this happens in case of UK, where whenever there is a coronation, for watching the procession, people book rooms in a hotel. And there was a case when the rooms were all booked for the people to be present there to watch the procession. Unfortunately, the coronation procession was cancelled, and the people who booked could not carry out their contract just because the contemplated event did not happen. Hotel cannot claim compensation from them just because the event didn't happen. Impossibility and frustration. Death or incapacity of the party. Simple case of A and B contracting to marry, and before the time fixed for marriage, A goes mad because he is incapacitated. Even if he dies, there is an impossibility of contract. Government intervention. For example, you have agreed to supply an imported item, maybe coffee beans or a bike, and the day you were supposed to import it and give it, government bans import of these items. As a result, it is impossible for you to give delivery of it. And the alien enemy thing part of it. Intervention of war. We have that example of German company having insurance business in India. World War II came. All of a sudden Germany became alien enemy. They cannot continue business in India. And impossibility comes into picture, and that is frustration. Here also, a contract to take in cargo for B at foreign port, and A's government declares war against the country in which the port is situated. The contract becomes void when war is declared because you have to import from an alien enemy. These are the situations where the contract is discharged for reasons of impossibility. And there is 56 which talks of three unique situations. It says, when an agreement is impossible in itself, or the act which is involved is impossible in itself, then the agreement is void. There is no question of if and but. If an act afterwards become impossible, as of the day of contract it is not impossible. If the act afterwards becomes impossible, it becomes void. First case it is void, here it becomes void. When one person has promised to do something which he knew to be impossible, he must make compensation. The example that is given is, if someone says, I will reach US within 1 hour from India to US and you have to pay me 1 lakh rupees. It is not possible. He knew that it is impossible to make the journey within 1 hour to US or within 4 hours to US. Such promiser must make compensation for any loss sustained through the non-performance. Just to say, agreement to do impossible things, if they are impossible in the beginning itself, the agreement is void. If they become impossible, it becomes void. And if someone knew it to be impossible, he has to make compensation. That is the summary of section 56. Agreement is one of the ways of discharging a contract. There are about 5 ways of achieving this. Let us see it in the next slide. Discharge of a contract is possible by way of agreements as mentioned in 62 to 64. Novation is one of the cases. What happens under novation is, for example, A has got a contract with B. B has borrowed 1000 rupees. He has to repay it after 1 year. In the meanwhile, A feels instead of he dealing with B, B should deal with C, his son. He makes a fresh contract between B and C for 1000, same terms. Now what happens is, the old contract is cancelled, a new contract comes into picture, and when you replace one old with the new, the novation comes into picture. There is a case of rescission also. What is rescission? Same, A has got a contract with B wherein he has lent 1000 and he has collected interest of 100 rupees in advance. After 1 month, he feels he doesn't want to continue that agreement. He resigns it, he cancels it. Now what happens when he cancels? B has to pay him 1000 back, but he has already paid him 100 rupees as interest. That he can get back. When he resigns, the benefit has to be given proportionately or pro rata wise. Third, there is a process of alteration. A has got a loan contract with B, who has taken it at 1000 at 10% per 1 year. Now he wants to change that contract. Instead of 1 year, he wants to make it a contract of 2 years. And he raises the interest by 1%. It should be 11% per annum. The old contract of 10% is altered and a new contract is made at 11% for 2 years. By altering, he discharges the old contract and a new altered contract comes into picture. We have seen loan waiver, ongoing schemes. Waiver is another way of discharge of a contract. For example, a farmer, he owes the bank say 10,000 rupees under a contract. He has to pay that. If there is a waiver, that 10,000 rupees contract is discharged. Waiver is just nothing but foregoing the rights. The banker will forego his rights to collect the loan back. Therefore, it is one of the ways of discharge. Remission. Remission is giving a concession. You have borrowed 5,000 rupees. The cooperative bank says, now we will waive 3,000. Just pay us 2,000. We will close your account. There is a remission. Remission is for a part of the amount. Waiver is for the full amount. These are the 5 ways. By agreement, we cancel one set of agreement and discharge it, and an alternative comes into picture. These are covered by section 62, 63 and 64. 62 says, effect of novation, rescission and alteration of contract. The original contract need not be performed. This is what we have seen in these cases. 64 says, consequence of rescission of voidable contract. Here we saw rescission of a contract. You cancel. When you cancel, the party rescinding a voidable contract, if he has received any benefit, he should restore such benefit. When he cancels the loan of 1,000, whatever interest he has collected in advance, he has give it back to B proportionately. And under 65, promisee may dispense with or remit performance of a promise wholly or partly. And this is what we have covered. When it is wholly done, it is a waiver. When it is partly done, it is a remission. And this is in respect of discharge by agreement. We will cover breach by lapse of time and by operation law in the next part. Breach means non-performance. This non-performance can happen with the lapse of time or by operation of law. As we see, lapse of time means when the promisor is supposed to perform, his intention to fail or not to perform can be seen even before the due date. If by his actions it becomes clear that there is likely to be a failure to perform, the promisee can consider it as an anticipatory breach. He should have a confirmed view that there is going to be a lapse and there is going to be a non-performance. He can resign the contract and he can sue for damages, or he can wait till the due date. For performance there is a due date. Either he can go for anticipatory breach and resign the contract and sue for damages, or he can wait till due date, give him a chance to perform, and then if there is a default, he can go for suit for damages. This is related to giving a time and waiting for the time to pass. With the lapse of time, there can be a breach followed by claim for damages. And there is breach by operation of law also. When a person dies, when he becomes insolvent, when there is an alteration materially without authorization in the contract, and when there is a merger of inferior rights with superior rights, because a tenant has a tenancy contract. When he buys the apartment in his name, the tenancy contract goes off, he becomes a owner. Therefore, inferiority rights merges, tenancy contract is cancelled. In these cases, by operation of law, there is a breach. In both cases, the party who has lost because of this is eligible for damages and can sue accordingly. And section 73 says, any loss or damage caused by breach, it has to be calculated based on loss which arises in the usual course of things. This loss or damage, it can be estimated in the beginning of the contract itself by the parties, and they can have this amount indicated in the contract it is known as liquidated damages. Liquidated damages is considered to be likely to result from the breach, and it is given for only direct losses. Remote losses are not covered by it. And even the courts, when they grant the damages, they follow the doctrine of reasonable compensation, and that reasonable compensation will be either the liquidated damages as per contract or other calculations which has been done, whichever is less is granted by the courts. It is a reasonable compensation paid to the person who has lost in the course of breach. We have thus covered discharge of a contract under various heads of performance, covering 37 to 43. Then application and promises prescription, reciprocal promises, discharge due to impossibility by novation, alteration, rescission, waiver and remission under agreement, and lapse of time and breach by operation of law. That covers the topic of discharge of a contract. The tabular presentation of the total things. We can have a real review and revision from this to remember the topics covered vertically, and this should help us to have quick reads of the various subheads which we have covered. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.